Now, there was one really bad incident that my wife went through. It was actually an accident that she had by herself that I had completely forgotten about. And I had a conversation with my son a few days ago. And again, this is the first time you're seeing me. My wife passed away from alcohol use disorder about 4.5 years ago. Now, this particular incident it was a rainy night around 2004. So this is about 10 years before she got her first DUI. And unfortunately, I was upstairs reading with my son. He was only 4 years old. We used to read to him before he went to bed. And I can remember my wife just crashing through the front door. I mean walking through the front door, just yelling. I had gotten in an accident, and come down. I need to talk to you. And my son and I both went like, "What is going on?" I didn't even know she had left. And we walked downstairs, and she was literally covered in mud from head to toe. She had a cut on her head. I'm like, "Where have you been? I didn't even know you'd left the house." So I walked downstairs, and with my son, we were both just kind of stunned, like, what is going on? Why are you covered in mud? It was it was pouring outside, so obviously something had happened, but we didn't even know she had left the house. And she said that she had completely totaled. It was a Ford Explorer, and that she had flipped it upside down, and that it was in a ditch upside down about 3 miles down the road. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I mean, I couldn't even wrap my head around what she was trying to explain to me. I go, "Well, how'd you get home?" She goes, "A passerby came by, and they brought me home because it was pouring outside. They didn't want to leave me by the side of the road." I'm like, "Wait, so you just left the car on this?" I mean, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, and it took me a while to just kind of wrap my head around and really understand what she was trying to say. Apparently, was driving to the store and had flipped the car off because it was just pouring cats and dogs. It was one of those nights, rare nights in California, where we do have flash floods, but I don't know what she was driving at night for. So from there, I immediately jumped in my car. I go, obviously you've left the scene of an accident. I need to go find out what's going on. And I drove down to where she said it was, and there was several police officers already at the scene. And they were very confused as to what's going on. I mean, I actually pulled up, and they kept waving me on, and I had to tell the officer, "No, that's my wife's car. I needed to explain to you what's going on." So they were like, "Really? Okay, we're kind of trying to figure out what's going on. There's no body here, and the car's upside down and destroyed." I mean, the cops were as confused as I was. And I sat there, and I looked at the car, and it was just completely, it was sitting on its hood. And the wheels were up in the air. And I'm like, how on earth did she do this? How was that even possible? And the first thing they asked me was, had she been drinking? I said, "No, she's not drinking. No, it was the rain. Obviously, she must have, the water on the road, she must have been maybe going too fast, or she hydroplaned and flipped the car, because there was a little bit of a shoulder, and there was a kind of a construction area. The housing areas hadn't been built yet, and she flipped into this huge ditch." The cops couldn't believe it, and I remember walking down into the ditch, and they allowed me to go into the car to get my son's car seat, because that was the only thing really worth saving, because I knew it was actually going to be towed to a junkyard, and I'm sure that was going to be the end of that car. So I took the seat, put it in my car, and talked to the police, and they asked me the address, so they went back and spoke to my wife. Two other officers from that scene went back and talked to my wife because they wanted to know if she'd been drinking. And somehow, when the officers went back, they sat there, and luckily for my wife, my son sat next to my wife, and they asked her a lot of questions if she'd been drinking, and she swore to them that she hadn't. And my son was sitting there kind of scared, and I don't think they wanted to push it too far. She was sitting in her own living room. But I think they knew. I think they knew there was a problem. They just realized there wasn't a whole lot that was going to happen. Nobody got hurt, and the car was totaled. There wasn't anything else going to happen. So they did leave her, unfortunately. I have no question if they had actually taken a breathalyzer, that they would have found out that she had been drunk driving, and it might have saved her. Sometimes I wish the police had actually done their job that night, but for whatever reason they didn't. She would have had her first DUI, and this is 10 years before she got her first DUI. And really what I discovered later, and I thought about this incident years later, and I realized that what really happened is that my wife had run out of wine. She had her daily supplement of wine, or daily bottle or two of wine that she drank, and she had run out. and she was going to the store to get more wine. And I didn't really realize that till years later. I mean, there was so much secrecy from her, as do so many alcoholics. And again, I tell this story not to disparage my wife, but it is something that resonates with other families, certainly with other alcoholics. They realize that they hide and manipulate situations, and sometimes they even have to manipulate the police on top of their own family members. And you have to recognize that. And if you do have somebody like that in your life, in your family, you need to recognize that and take action. If I had known what I know now back then, it wouldn't have gone a whole lot further, and we would have got her into a rehab then. But I didn't. But if you don't know, unfortunately, you don't. You know, again, I go live Monday through Friday, right around 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Link is in the bio. Link is in the bio for the Facebook group, which is called "There's an Alcoholic in the Family," or you can go to Facebook and find it, but you can just find it in the link. Also, the coaching program, I have a one-on-one coaching program designed to help families and alcoholics. I've helped thousands of people. I want people who are ready and, you know, who want to change themselves and their families' lives forever. We will set you up a blueprint and hold your hand for as long as you need. And again, thanks for listening.